Mikey, cheers.
Hold on.
Okay.
Gotta,
I was a little quick to the draw.
gotta get my saps on. Yeah, I'm joining the club today.
Cheers to talking Outbound.
Yes, sir.
Top of the funnel is something that people care about. So my question to you is, looking back at your career, you were at Dell, you were an SDR, you moved your way up to account executive. You've always had to get in the door to open up opportunities. What's been a common thread for you at a high level of like what works for you? Maybe it's certain channels, certain approaches. Let's just have a broad conversation on Outbound today.
Yeah. Great question. I think it goes back to what we talked about a few episodes ago around the whole know me, like me, trust me, buy for me. And I say that because when I think back when we used to do $100 a day, 2 hour talk time, uh, getting somebody's attention the first 5 seconds was the most important piece. If I knew that I could get you on the phone for longer than 5 seconds, there was a chance. There's a chance, there's an opportunity for something to happen. And how do we do that, right? I think the liking me part, getting people to quickly like you. And I know it's really tough, and it's kind of weird to say that when you're just jumping into a phone call, but your tone, so tonality plays a huge role. So if I reached out and was like, "Hey, it's John calling from X, Y, and Z," somebody would click the phone on me. You know what I mean? So if you're like, "Hey, what's going on?" and if it's 9 a.m. in the morning, nobody wants to talk to that guy either,
Yeah.
or that girl. So it's like finding your voice, something that's captivating. There's a guy that I actually we always have different people that we pick and choose things
Yeah.
from. There's a guy named Jerry Minor. I used to take little things.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
he puts out a ton of games. So I used to use some of the things that he would use after learning what Dell taught me, and I put what I learned from him, put it together, kind of helped me with formulating my style and not always having just one style, but having multiple different styles depending on the day, the time, and kind of just adjusting as it goes. I think when you get into cold calling, you get so used to the script of trying to get past like whatever you're trying to get through whatever they've written for you to say that you forget your flow, and you're not really, it doesn't sound natural. It sounds scripted. And people don't like to pick up phones, people that are doing things that are scripted. So I know I didn't really jump into it yet. I kind of just wanted to talk about it broadly,
Yeah.
and then we can narrow it down. But we can give a couple of different examples and talk about different experiences.
I like the different tone examples. You gave a couple non-examples of someone who's just like low energy and sounds kind of boring and,
Yeah.
and maybe even a little nervous. And then you gave an example of someone who was over the top, like too excited. And that I had a guy call me recently and I was like, dude, get to the point. And then funny enough, he hung up on me. Like, wait, that's ridiculous. Why would you hang up on someone like you're not doing your job? But I gave him a little feedback as a seller. So I think the tone at how we say it is everything. They say, especially in a call, we don't have body language to go off, which is probably the most telling. Tone is, I don't know if it's 60% of our communication. To your point, it's easy to get caught up on a script, but the challenge with a script is you can sound scripted and robotic, and you could be so caught up on saying things right rather than being present and connecting and bringing. I do think, though, scripts are useful, and it's on us to bring the script alive.
That's fair.
I heard a joke from the Kevin Dorsey, who was actually in the studio with me, and he said, he actually is a proponent for scripts. He said, no one goes to a Taylor Swift concert and complains, oh, that was scripted. Taylor practices down to a T Swift. Dun-dun-dun, shh.
That's cool.
You know what I'm saying? So she practices the script, and it's all written out. So in Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, there's a script. He's practicing. So there's something to be said for us bringing it to life. Now, how do you bring your conversations to life? Like maybe it's just, one, you're being authentic, Mikey, but do you, like, especially when you're cold calling, did you ever set intentions going into, or did you, like,
It all
how did,
depends, because you go through like the whole process of like scrubbing your leads, and you're trying to find, the needle in the haystack. So You want to hit that right one. That's always the goal. Uh, were there any like intentions prior to jumping into it? Sometimes, and that really just depended on how much. Like if I saw that they were a previous customer, now they're no longer a customer, then that would intrigue me. If I saw that, this person has, because there's different tools that are out there that'll tell you somebody's high in activity, and I know they're looking for a solution like what I'm selling, then I'm like, yeah, I need to hit them up, and I need to tailor my story, right? That goes from what I just said. I never used to say things like that were the same every time. It'd be different depending on who I'm speaking to, the industry that they're in. I would tailor it, whatever. I would tailor my brain to having a conversation to whatever we would be or whatever they do. But the point of this is it's cold calling, right? Like you shouldn't even be talking. I told you with some of the campaigns that I run, I don't even talk about products for sometimes weeks, sometimes months, right? I'm there to listen and I'm there to help. And naturally, people like helping people too. So it kind of goes, everything I'm going to talk about, or we'll talk about today, is kind of more like the whole how to establish the knowing me, the like me, the trust me,
Mm.
and the buying me part, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're an SDR, you're trying to set the meeting. So that's the buying from you. They're buying, hey, this person knows what they're talking about, or this person did a really good job with cold calling me. I'm buying into joining the call with the AE next, right? So how do we do that? Different ways, but I find that going back to the whole people like helping people, when you make that first cold call, hey, how's it going? I know people typically say don't use the whole open-ended, right? You don't want to start with an open-ended question, but if you come at the person correctly, hey, how's it going? You sound kind of like you're confused and you need some help. People tend to be a little bit, their ears tuned, right? So it's kind of like playing a little psychology game around like getting people interested. I don't know if I should say this, but it's kind of funny. I curiosity. When I used to highlight girls all the time, I
Yeah.
would use, "Hey, can I be really random?" Right? Because they're like, "Well, this is out of
Yeah.
the blue. Where did this come from?" And that's the same type of mindset of like, "Hey, being curious." And we talked about curiosity a ton, right? When you get into these other roles, how to establish, how to do things, but curiosity. So getting somebody to be curious on the phone. Hey, how's it going? Wanted to see if you could help me, right? I think that like always, and it's like, well, I don't know who you are. Why are you calling me? And some people may hang up, some people may not. But how you approach it, I think sometimes can be captivating, right? You want to bring the audience in or bring that person in. I want to see if you can help me. I'm looking for somebody that works in storage. That's where I focus more so, or that's working on AI. I read about your company, see that you guys are trying to establish this, and wanted to better understand like what you guys are doing today.
Mm.
And I would set an agenda, kind of say, hey, 5 minutes is really really just want to spend 5 minutes just to better understand what you guys are doing, see if my company could possibly help, or if there's a partnership that could be had here. I spend most of my time talking to customers about X, Y, and Z in this industry, about this and that, right? Like, I think when you had asked my question, do I come with intentions? I tailor it to whoever I'm speaking to. So if I'm calling somebody that's in the energy sector, then I would tailor my mindset towards the energy sector, right? I speak I speak to folks about X, Y, and Z in the energy sector. See that you guys have specifically set an initiative to work around this. Is that something that you're involved in,
Mm.
right? Or if that's something that you'd be curious about listening or learning about, or would you be interested in hearing about, why X, Y, Z company did this or how they accomplished that, right? The thing about people most of the time in their industry, especially when they're busy, you have to set something that you have to set the hook, right? Getting some, getting something that sounds intriguing enough to open up a next door for a next conversation, right? So it was like everything that you say has to lead them into a hole that you want them to be in. You already know the end. I anticipate certain answers, right? And there's like three or four that I want them to say. If they don't say it, then I kind of just adjust on the fly. But I want to hear certain cues. No, I'm not involved with that. But, or, no, I'm not involved with that. Okay, well, do you know who would be the right person that's involved with that? Because the cold calling is all about getting the next. step, right? Getting the next call. So going back, so we start from the beginning, setting the tone. Hey, how's it going? The curiosity, like having a flow about it. Hey, how's it going? Like, I'm hoping that you can help me. I'm looking for, you know, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z, or this person and this, and that works around this part of the business. Is that somebody that you would know, or is somebody that you could help with? And the reason why I'm asking is because I work with a ton of the folks in your industry around X, Y, and Z, and I'm trying to see if you guys are still following this initiative that you guys mentioned back in your 10K last year or your 10K earlier this year, right? Tying it back to the business. So that means that you've done some type of research. You're not just calling just to call. You haven't talked about a product yet, and you kind of just set the
Yeah, yeah.
stage, right? Like,
Yeah, I like that tone of someone lost in New York City asking for directions. Like, I was hoping you could help me out for a moment. I work with companies like yourself. Maybe you name drop a good, strong company or two to help solve this challenge or achieve these types of results. I'm curious, would you be the best person to work with on this, or who would be the best person to, work on this specific initiative? And so I really like it. Have you seen Forrest Gump? You've seen that movie,
of
right?
course.
And so what does he say to Jenny? Life is like a
I don't remember.
box of chocolates.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
So
like
so
chocolate, so
yeah.
sorry, y'all.
Oh yeah. He's like, life is like a box of chocolate. He doesn't sound like that. But to me,
That's not bad.
cold outreach is like a triple scoop ice cream cone from Jenny's. And so let me explain what I mean by that. So every good ice cream has a cone that holds it all together, and I think of the cone as the script. It could also be an email template for a cold email.
Yeah.
So with most cold calls, I think of, for me, an opener. You gave a great opener. You might need to be ready for brush off objections like I'm busy, I'm running to a meeting.
Yeah, which is just fine, and you always get that. You will always get that.
And that's something we can dig into how we deal with that.
Yeah.
There's a third part in my mind, which is piquing curiosity. It's kind of sharing why you're reaching out, establishing some credibility and value. Then the fourth piece of the cone, this framework that keeps it all together, is asking good questions, good discovery questions on the current state. Hopefully, finding some pain to drill into, getting them talking more. I've seen, based on the data, calls that last longer tend to convert more. If you can have like a decent conversation, build a little rapport, and find a need. And then also sometimes like art, like questions around art of the possible, like what would it mean for your team if we could improve XYZ process?
Right.
And then finally, the fifth part of the ice cream cone framework here, in terms of the cone itself, is asking for and setting the meeting confidently. So there's like a framework. And then I say a triple scoop ice cream from Jenny's because in addition to the script and that framework, I'd say the first scoop is value. We're entering into a value for time exchange. Why would you give me your time? You'd give me your time because the meeting was actually useful. And so what are flavors of value? Like maybe after the call, you're going to gain insight into a couple industry trends that are impacting you.
Yep.
You're going to hear some stories of how similar companies are solving specific challenges that are relevant. You might get an assessment like an ROI calculation or, and so anyways, and there's a couple more scoops, but value at the end of the day, they got to see that value,
Yep, I
But
agree.
yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, pointing out something that Chris just talked about that really resonates well is this: you didn't talk about a product at all. You made it about them, right? About their company, their industry. I think sometimes we get happy ears, right? That's what we used to call it when you're going through a cold call and things are sounding good. You start hearing the things that you want to hear and you get happy ears. And we used to get slapped on the wrist all the time by our managers, right? Our BDR managers. And the reason why was because you're falling outside of that cone, right? Now everything's because you don't anticipate, most of the time you don't anticipate things going well. So when people start to really align to your cone, right, and they start saying the right things, you stop asking the right questions that can help with the next call. But the main point is you didn't talk about a product. Hey, my name is Mike Plancher, calling from Vast Data. You know what I mean? Or let me take that back because I normally don't say who I'm calling from, but hey, calling because I work with a ton of companies that are in your industry. Wanted to see if you guys are still working on X, Y, and Z. Read about this and tie it back to the business. Make it about them. One thing is people love talking about themselves. Number two is people typically like helping people. Not all, but a lot of people do
Yeah.
like helping people. So if you can introduce both those two things in the beginning, how can I get this person to be involved in my success, right? Which ultimately, you're playing a game.
Yeah, and you really build influence when you get someone like a prospect giving things to you, like they give their time, they make a warm introduction to the right person. It's funny how we actually, when people give to us, we build influence with them.
Yeah,
It's like psychologically.
it is. It's a very real thing, and I think that like in college, I took psychology class, and I took business class, and I took philosophy. And those three combos, if you're in college, I think it's worthwhile taking a class in those three
Yeah.
subjects, specifically for a couple of reasons. One, the psychological part. When you're doing sales, you're having to do this dance with somebody that you don't know. You're having to build a relationship with somebody that you don't know. You're having to tell this person the whole. Now that you have gotten the whole, hey, let's get to know me, let's get to like me, the trusting part, getting somebody to trust you, right? That works in how you speak to them, how you treat them, how you help them see things differently, right? So that goes with the whole psychology part of things. And then the business part of things, but having that business acumen, how can this be beneficial for you? How can it make you look like the rock star within your business? And understanding the numbers, right? Have being able to tie. So right now, I'm going aside from the whole cold calling, but I'm just talking about what all of that does and what it builds upon, right? What does the future look like after the fact? The philosophy part, being able to be, because you got to be able to have some, some mouth, you have to be able to have some game to you,
Yeah.
some mouthpieces, what the young folks say nowadays.
Yeah, it is a game. You got to riz a little bit. Have you heard of that term, the Rizzler?
Yeah.
He like,
The Riz is corny, but
yeah,
it had a little bit of Riz. And that's where the philosophy part comes in. And then the art of the possible. Philosophy it's always a questioning game, right? Curiosity game. Right. Why are you guys doing that? Or what benefits have you guys found from it? Or what disadvantages have you guys seen from that? Right. What would this do for your business if you guys were able to improve this by 50%? Right. Like, how would it help you personally? Right. Tie it back to the person, being more personable. Right. I think again, the whole know me, like me, trust me, buy from you. Hear me say that a ton because my mentor, Chris Riley, used to always tell me, if you can get those things down, then it would open up a lot of doors for you. And so yeah, we go back.
yeah. No, this is great, we'll even go through a script. I've got some ideas, but there's no silver bullet, right? And it ultimately, people buy from people they like being likable, being authentic. This is the cornerstone is really how we show up, our tone, and being curious. Having a curiosity to understand the situation of the prospect and actually qualify if there's a fit or not. And I think one other mindset piece is just being detached from the outcome. When we're attached to the outcome, we're holding things tightly. It's like I need to force this at all costs to get the meeting. But sometimes it's not a fit. And either way, if you are trying to force and manipulate, the prospect can sniff that out and it's gonna turn them away. So I just want to call out that. But going back to this triple scoop ice cream from Jenny's, right? We talked about the cone and a script framework that is 5 parts, which we can get back to. Then value is the first scoop. Like we enter into a value for time exchange. Like you're only going to meet with me if you see clear value, like what's in it for you. And I make that clear. Then on top of that is something you're already doing in your own talk tracks is that second scoop is empathy, like showing that we get their world, putting ourselves in the customer's world, showing that we get the changing dynamics in their industry, opportunities and threats. So what that might look like is calling out a specific trigger. I noticed your recent investment in the Mind Innovation Lab.
Yeah.
In your industry, what we've seen, there's a recent regulation that is that all customers in your space are having to adapt to, and so triggers in their world, either within their specific company based on press releases, their 10K annual report.
Yep, they're in it.
Or it could be industry-wide, and that's nice if you get an industry-wide compelling event.
Yeah.
And so there's some empathy, right? We're in their world, and it's kind of like typically I talk to people like you, and they're dealing with these challenges, and this is what we're seeing. This is how we help them. And so they're like, oh, okay, Chris actually talks to people like me. He gets my world. It might be worth talking to him. So empathy. Now, another degree, a flavor of empathy is speaking their language, mirroring. So you look at their LinkedIn profile. How does this person talk about their own values and their role? And if you can actually bring that into even a cold email or a cold call off the bat, people buy from people that are like them, and they like people who are like them. To your point, they got to like you. But maybe even in this conversation, you could be nimble and assess that. But speaking their language is another flavor. And then one other piece of empathy that cranks up the impact is telling customer stories that are relevant, and you crank up that impact, man, if you can actually tell the story with a bit of specificity. So not like overly detailed, but with enough detail to show you're not just a fluffy sales guy.
Yep.
Like, when I made a cold call to OfferUp that led to a 10 million over 3 deal, which was my biggest at Google Cloud.
Big dog.
I'm laughing because some of your deals are just next level. So, but wait, it's not a deal measuring contest here.
250K is the same thing to a million.
Yeah. So, oh, shoot. Oh yeah, specificity, right? So not telling a story or give an example that's not just fluffy. It's like there was another. Let's just say when I called OfferUp, we're working with another digital native company, born on the cloud, running on AWS like yourself. And the reason they switched to us is because global expansion was also key to their business strategy. And the reason we were different and the reason they actually chose us was because of our proprietary fiber network. It's designed a little bit differently than our competitors. And I didn't go way into it, but just even giving a taste, like not just, oh, we're different, but here's a little taste, a little bit of specificity. It's the network that's different. And the reason that mattered is because as they scaled, they wanted to avoid missed transactions and unhappy customers that would be due to outages and brownouts. So that's why they chose us, and they even were quoted, and then maybe I throw like a little bit of social proof and a customer quote on top. But all I'm saying is like in telling a story, like do a little work to give a little bit of specificity and like around differentiation and business impact. And if I could have cranked it up even more if I said, oh, we save them X amount of dollars, if you can actually dollarize the impact. But that's a whole thing, is like the art of telling stories and doing it in a way that is more compelling, So yeah, just a thought on empathy. And then there's,
I like that.
We can pause there. There's one other flavor and then sprinkle on top. We could get to that. Do you want to dig any more into like the empathy customer stories?
I think setting, and that goes, I guess, and the reason why I looked up, I was like thinking about what you just said, how it's been relevant for me as well, in the sense of you call on to a customer, you've been down, because here's the thing, when you're cold calling, I don't know about you guys or how you guys did at Oracle, but if you have 300 or 400 leads, those 300 or 400 leads were in your queue for the next 3 quarters or the next quarter or 2 quarters, whatever the case may be, right? And then they get recycled. You start to get a little bit more every time you call, is what I always notice. Like for me, I was like, man, there's one dude, I can't talk right now, I can't catch right now, but you start timing it a little bit differently. And I would say, if we take a step back before we get to the sprinkle, just for everybody when it comes to like cold calling, don't get discouraged. And I say that because there's a couple of things that I've noticed. There's a ton. There is a lot of AEs that never really got a chance to really establish themselves or really understand how to cold call. And so they set a ton of meetings off of emails or BCIs, right? Blind calendar invites is what we call them.
Yeah.
And you couldn't, and I know you couldn't do blind calendar invites until you hit a certain metric of cold calling, right?
Can you explain this for the audience, for those who haven't heard of it?
Yeah, so like essentially it's
Tech sales is an amazing career path where you can make as much as doctors and lawyers without having to cut anyone open or work ungodly hours. Looking back 10 years later, having personally started out in tech sales at Oracle, then moved to Google Cloud and a startup, and now fully launching into entrepreneurship, I can say with confidence that tech sales transformed my life through the income that it produced, the skill development, the connections, and the self-development that I unlocked along the journey. If you're someone who wants to strategically build your own six-figure tech sales career without wasting valuable time and earnings potential, then consider Tech Sales Accelerator and our 12-week programs as your blueprint. Our partners are breaking in and crushing quota at top companies like Oracle, Google Cloud, VMware, and Salesforce, leveraging our in-depth video content, one-on-one coaching, community, and network access. And we'd love to partner with you too to accelerate your own success on this path. If you'd like to learn more about Tech Sales Accelerator and our programs, then feel welcome to book time at my Calendly link, linked in the description of this video, and we'll walk you through all the details. Or just download my free cold calling system that's going to help you crush the phones quickly, also linked in the description of this video. All right, let's get back to the episode.
We go back to the whole, you got to do $100 a day, 2 hours at a time, set up, over 5 appointments a week, right? And appointments, setting up meetings for your AM or AE. Before we could even do blind calendar invites, which is, sending out an email, putting time on somebody's calendar without them knowing, right? Unannounced. But ironically, as much as it sounds crazy, people, they join those meetings. I wouldn't say that it's 90% of the time. I wouldn't say it's 50% of the time. But if it's 30% of the time, those are guaranteed. You get one meeting from somebody that wanted to join a meeting.
Yeah.
And you got to set over 5 appointments for the week, right? You get one person a day and you meet your metrics for the week. So a lot of people used to bank on sending blind calendar invites.
Yeah.
But what does that do, though? It doesn't really help you, because you can prepare for those meetings, but it doesn't help you for jumping on a cold call or making a cold call and being able to captivate somebody, catch somebody's attention without, sending an email. So at a high level, I think that it hurts in the long run when you get to an account manager role, not knowing how to just pick up the phone and be like, hey, because you're not comfortable with it. I'm not saying that, not knocking on it, because I did a ton of BCIs too, but they made it a point for us to really understand that grind of cold calling.
Yeah.
The anxiety cold calling brings, right? Because we all get anxious. We talk about the last week, we talked about me being, passed up, for 3 quarters, and there were different factors that happened. One of the factors early on was the anxiety I would get, or falling into the script, not really building amongst that cone that I knew was there that could help me kind of bounce around. But within the cone, I could bounce around, but I was bouncing outside of it and not really asking the right questions or setting myself up for success, right? I was too anxious, and you could get that, and you could feel that energy when you're on a call with somebody. Somebody wants to talk to you, you could tell they want to talk to you. Somebody does want to talk to you, you can also tell when somebody doesn't want to talk to you. Just like how the guy hung up on you, it's like he most likely was afraid or got scared or got flustered and didn't know how to respond. Right?
Yeah.
That's typically what happens in
Yeah.
different cases. So I say all that to bring it back. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, something that you and I had talked about before.
Yeah.
But get comfortable being uncomfortable. Really try to understand different ways, tonality, empathy, gaining trust, right? All the things that you and I value, all the things that we have listed out together. Those things are what matters, and those are the pillars that you should always have in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm going to go on a quick, just run through all of it real quick, because we talked about the cone and the framework for the cold call. We talked about values, the first scoop, what they're going to get for their time. Then we talked about empathy, showing you get their world. They feel like, oh, they get me. Like, I trust this person. They know specifically the triggers, the changes going on. They're able to share relevant customer stories. They're speaking my language. language.
Yep.
Now I just have to finish up the cone, because this is something I've been workshopping, and I'll continue to make the metaphor and everything better. But it's fun to kind of workshop it here today. Personalization, I'm not going to call it that. Familiarity is the top scoop, man. That takes it another level. If I can make it feel familiar, like, oh, like maybe you're like Chris, he feels just like me. And so it is through personalization. And I've been thinking this through, man. I have 4 levels of what I call relating like a rock star, or to create familiarity. Okay. Yeah. One is the personal level. I do research on your LinkedIn profile, maybe Twitter or whatever I can find on you, to make a communication so personal to you, whether it's flattery and authentic acknowledgement or something we have in common. Oh, I saw you're from Naples as well. It wouldn't make sense for anyone else. And it's what I call communication that cost me something, because it took some time to bring that personal touch. So I'm going fast because I know we don't have a lot of time, but
no. I think
we're going at the personal level.
Yep.
Okay. That's familiarity. It could be organizational level. I noticed Vast I was on the site and noticed Vast has X values, the 10X thinking. I'm just making it up, right? And we share that at our company. Or I noticed we both have shared customers in the retail vertical, making that up, but organizational synergies, another level of familiarity. The last 2 are 3 and 4 is like industry level, relating at the industry level, like, and it could be relevant
trends.
Yeah. Industry trends, shared customers, things like that. We're really focused on this vertical. And then finally, local, man. If we can make it feel local, like I work with other fintechs in the Austin area, and that can tie into events, by the way. But the local feel, brother,
it's different.
Like, that's huge. Okay, and one final thing: the sprinkles on top is a touch of humanity. And I had this one time where I told a story to the CMO of Sur La Table, how my mom bought me a macaroon making class. I didn't want to go, but then I went, had a great time. Next thing you know, I was on the T, which is the train in Boston, sharing macaroons with strangers, laughing out loud. Yeah. So that was a little bit of humanity. Now that final sprinkle, that personality, we don't want to overdo it and like be like over the top where you're not a professional, but that's just the ice cream cone. And I'm glad to finish it, but the local piece.
No.
Yeah.
I love that.
You bring it together. That's irresistible. Hey, here's a triple scoop from Jenny's in terms of the community. It could be an email. It could be over the phone, LinkedIn. You hit them across channels. So yeah, but local.
Yeah,
the local
I think there's a couple of things that I want to throw onto that. One, we live in a world where we were talking about AI last time, I believe. Yeah. We have a lot of tools to our disposal. There's no reason why you shouldn't be leveraging ChatGPT to help do some of this research.
Yeah.
Right? Like, hey, you could tell ChatGPT, look up this person's LinkedIn, create me a script for this person specifically, and then have it do 3 different versions of it.
Yeah, you can teach it your own style and your framework. Yeah. And there are tools like Udly as well, and Hyperbound, that are AI role-playing things. And you could also here's their annual report. Find the nuggets and the risk factors that align to.
And all that you need to do is have a little bit of that going through your head. But again, when you and I were going through our inside sales program, we didn't have none of these tools to ourselves.
Yeah. We
had to do the scrubbing. I was scrubbing after work, outside of work, during the weekends, trying to make sure I could set myself up for the week. And I'm going to touch on that real quick, only because I know a lot of people get discouraged whenever you're the first one in, last one out. You're doing a ton of scrubbing and you're crying your butt off and you can't get nobody to pick up the phone. Or when they pick up the phone, you're not getting any luck. Don't get discouraged. We always been we all go through it.
Yeah.
And that's always going to be a part of the game. Just have to learn your voice, your tonality, your style, right? And start to tailor things. I think this is a great point to throw in there. Like, some of the things that Chris and I are doing, if you guys want to get into a deeper dive as to what that looks like, if you guys want something that's personalized on how to cold call, how you can try different methods, you have your program that's out there.
Right? Yeah.
And that's there to help folks with, the struggles that they're going through today with cold calling, with getting a job, or whatever the case may be. I just wanted to throw that in there because I think it's like I can go back and forth with you on different things that we have done in our tenure and talk about some of the things that we've tried and some things that we have worked on, but there's no one size that fits all. And so I think it's very unique with your program, what you're doing, and how we can help you guys that are out there, the audience, tailor your story, find your tonality, find uh, your style, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's like trying on clothing with cold calling, right? I have a bag of 12 openers or more, honestly, but what works best for Mikey? Or, Nick and I are connecting today and he's just onboarding to the program. He's an account executive at Splunk. So like us in a very technical space, and he wants to be the PG, as he calls it, which is, I think, the pipeline guy. He wants to put his stake in the ground and become the number one pipeline generator. Because what I found in my experience at Google Cloud is I got promoted from inside sales to field sales based on my ability to prospect, actually. Yep. Even at the closing level, it really matters.
It does.
And so, and it's definitely a privilege to have you be a part of the program, and maybe someone out there is fortunate enough to be able to work with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've been building a bench of coaches. I actually have a guy that was leading cohorts, SDR cohorts at Oracle that came on board as well. So we're expanding, and Outbound really is the focus. Yes, we help people break into tech sales, and I have some other partners who actually I've solidified a partnership to leverage their extra capacity to help people break in, but the real focus is Outbound. I'm checking the time. I know we got to wrap up soon, but I wanted to take us through the cold calling framework from A to Z. We could also do it at another point, but I feel like we could do it quickly. Yeah. So I said there's 5 parts to the cold call, right? And there's an opener. I loved your opener that you're basically
curiosity, the lost guy.
Yeah, lost. You also could do something like, "Hey, Mikey, this is Chris calling from Oracle. I probably caught you in the middle of something. So before I go any further, do you have a minute for me to share why I'm reaching out to you specifically?" Or you could say something like, "Hey, Mikey, it's Chris from Oracle. I was on your website and I saw you're hiring for an engineer. But I was wondering, do you got a moment? I wanted to ask you a couple questions to see if it's even worth a larger conversation."
Yeah.
Do you have a second? These are a couple examples. There's a lot of different versions. But from there, you get a brush off objection like, "I'm busy." You could say something like, "Hey, get your busy. I don't want to waste your time. I'm curious, is cost savings a current priority for you right now?" You could throw something in there, or just to see if it's an actual priority. Or you could say, "Hey, I get you're busy. Would it make sense for me to briefly explain right now why I'm reaching out to you specifically, so you can decide if it even makes sense to talk again in the future?" That's an example.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would add to for the brush off objection?
I would maybe an agenda. Hey, I don't like this. You may not be the right person, and I know I'm probably catching you at the wrong time. But this is the reason. Here's what I do here. The conversations that I have. I just want to see. We just want to get 5 minutes to see if that would be something that would be of interest to you, right? Like, I say that as an agenda. Hey, you're telling them already. Yeah. It's gonna be 5 minutes. You're telling them that, hey, here's what I typically do with other customers, right? I think the part that you had mentioned around the local is what I really like too, because knowing that, hey, I work with a lot of folks here in the Austin, or in my case, in the Tola region, right? Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas. And it's like, people are always curious about what other people are doing. That is a very real thing. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because it's something that I sprinkle in there as a point of, like, 1, credibility, but 2, building that familiarity that you talked about with, hey, this person knows somewhat of my world. This person speaks to people like me. And when that commonality together, that typically resonates really well.
Yep, and I'm going to keep going. We might have someone crash the party in a second, but from there, and now if they're really busy and the guy's trying to get to his daughter's recital, then I would say, "Hey, okay, I don't want to get in the way of your daughter's recital. That's important. Family time's everything. Is there a better time that to call you back where I'm not doing you a disservice and calling you out of the blue?" And maybe you get agreement to put something in the calendar. But let's just say you don't get the brush off. We went on a tangent there. And he says, yes, you got some time. I would pique curiosity by using a framework like this. Mikey, we appreciate it, Mikey. We typically work with VPs like yourself, or I talk with VPs like yourself all the time. And what we're seeing is they're dealing with X challenge, Y challenge, and Z challenge.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what are you seeing? What are you seeing? Are you dealing with any of those challenges, or do you have that all figured out? So the point is, the frameworks, like we talk to people like you, where they're seeing it throughout 3 relevant challenges. Are you seeing this open-ended question? How are you managing that?
Yep.
Something like that. What's called like a reverse pitch. You're just framing problems to find the right problem. And to finish out the framework, then maybe you get to a point where you're able to ask some more questions on the current state. That is an example of a current state question when you're like, are you seeing any of this, or how are you managing this? You might ask questions to get them talking more. So they do say something, and you're like, oh, could you tell me more about that? Oh, interesting. Oh, that's a challenge. Like, how are you dealing with that? So you ask those questions to get them talking more. Maybe, painstaking questions like, how much is that costing you? Is there any compelling deadline driving you to actually solve this?
Again, y'all,
and
he's not talking about his product. You have not mentioned anything about it.
Yeah.
I'm just pointing that out because it's such a big point. I'm glad.
Yeah. And I'm moving fast, and then finally, the art of the possible questions that we talked about. So if you do land on, okay, they have a pain point, it's costing them something substantial. So I'm curious, if we could solve this for you, like, what would that mean for you and your team?
Yeah.
And so just, again, a couple examples of questions on what's the current state, what's going on, get them talking more, dig into the challenges, art of the possible, and then ask for the meeting. So, and this is the final thing, and then we can wrap up the conversation. But Mikey,
we'll do a part 2.
Yeah. And Mikey, it sounds like reducing costs in your AWS bill is a priority for you right now. And I'm glad I called, because we help a lot of companies like you, including XYZ company in your local area in Austin.
No,
in their case, we helped them save $10,000 a month that they were able to reallocate towards innovating their business. So can I make a suggestion? Cool.
I like it.
Yeah. And then, so it's a, can I make a suggestion close? I like to recommend that we set up some time with your dedicated account executive, or if you're the AE, that's if you're an SDR. If you're the AE, like with one of my technical FinOps, I'd like to suggest we connect with one of my FinOps experts, whatever specialists, to walk through what you're doing today, share some relevant customer stories, and also some insight into incremental savings you could achieve with us. If anything, you're going to walk away from that conversation with useful ideas, and we'll be your insurance policy for the future. Do you have your calendar ready? And then you go into like booking the meeting. You find a time, and then also you confirm the audience. Like, is there anyone else who needs to be a part of the conversation?
Yep.
And then boom, you get it in there. Did you just confirm they accept the invite? And then maybe with cherry on top, reinforce, looking forward to talking with you next Thursday at 4 p.m.
Yeah, bring the human part in it.
Yeah, to dig into where we can help you get some incremental savings wins. Appreciate the opportunity, and looking forward to talking soon.
Even I'm gonna steal what Chris just said there. Can I make a suggestion?
And a little rushed, right? But I'm glad I feel like we were able to pack in enough today where someone could come away and have at least some more clarity around cold calling,
For sure. Yeah. I mean, look, it's a conversation. It's an ongoing conversation that you and I were always sprinkling in there, because it was a very important part of our success in our careers. Yeah. And again, like Chris mentioned, I will be, working with you and your program to help with coaching folks, right? I'm one of the people that's going to be on the bench. If you want something that's more personalized, if you want something that's going to be dedicated to you, trying to help you build your own tonality, figuring out what works for you, what doesn't work for you, I'll be there to help. Help Taylor build that story.
Yeah, and one thing we didn't get into was objections, and that's something we could look at, and that's something we work on.
Yeah.
And but the whole point is tailoring to someone's specific company, solutions, personas, and market, and then reinforcement through role playing and practicing together. And also, something about coaching that's powerful is translating beliefs.
Yeah.
And getting to know you, brother, and like really getting to know you more than ever before, because we are from the same hometown, but have reunited in Austin. You've got powerful belief, man. And that, I believe, through your coaching will like translate to people, just through osmosis, being around that mindset. Like, because when I work with people, man, sometimes they have these limiting beliefs, and I love blowing those up. And if anything, just given that sometimes the gift of encouragement is what makes the difference. Like, I had a guy, Belanger, he's over at VMware, and he had a QBR. And yes, he put together a great presentation. I gave him some feedback, but I think ultimately that belief that, dude, you're ready, you got this. And it was his first QBR in a new AE role. That made a difference. And he came away like saying that it went really well.
Excited, yeah.
And so, but one thing that I want to go back to that you talked about last time is, aren't we all under construction? So you and I, we're still under construction. We're still growing and learning, but it's fun to be able to do that together.
Yeah.
And to grow and learn with the TSA tribe, and having conversations like this, it makes us all better. And I'm just excited at where things are heading. But any thoughts as we wrap up, whether it's encouragement, mindset?
Yeah, the only encouragement, or not the only encouragement, but the biggest encouragement I can give is don't be disencouraged, right? Don't be discouraged.
Yeah.
I say that because it's not what you're doing. It's not an easy thing. It's not something that everybody can do, but there is different styles and there is different things you can try that can help you build your own story, your own style, and don't get discouraged when somebody hangs up the phone on you. I've gotten hundreds of calls hung up on me.
Oh, dude.
Oh,
I've gotten hung up so much, and
now
I'm just
gotta brush it off.
I'm gonna share this, like, just kind of speak from the heart, like high level statement. And I'm being dramatic. This isn't inspirational, but this is on prospecting. It's like I wrote out this sentence on my phone the other day, and I'm like, this is prospecting in a nutshell. It's like, you pick the right target companies, the whales that could change your quarter-year in career, the dolphins mid-size that can actually move the needle.
Yeah.
And you find a specific persona, the right persona to reach out to. You get your cone, your framework for cold calling, or an email template, and you add the ingredients of value, empathy, personalization, maybe a sprinkle of humanity. And you do that for months, man. Like I think of prospecting in 6 to 9 month terms. And you do it across channels. So phone, email, LinkedIn, you're multi-threading with all of these ingredients, the triple scoop ice cream cone, irresistible cold outreach. And you keep doing that. And then you also multi-thread across personas. You don't get caught up with one persona. But when you add that all up, eventually it's inevitable you're going to break into the most strategic accounts. And the true power is when you continue to leverage the value, the empathy, and the familiarity and the personal touch over time, if you can keep that up. Because eventually I've had prospects meet with me because I earned it through my thoughtfulness and being a professional. So, yeah, anyways.
Got me hyped. I think I'm going to do
Let's go.
I'm going to do some cold calling.
Dude, I'm about to do some prospecting for a company that I'm doing some fractional work for. So I'm going to get back into it. I'm going to sharpen myself, right?
That just got me hyped up.
Yeah, dude. And it's like, I'm going to be making cold calls, doing some live prospecting. And, Mikey, thanks so much for the time, man. You've got such a busy schedule, and yet you make time to show up consistently for these podcasts. We're just getting started, dude.
Yeah.
And okay, one other thought.
Yeah.
Volume negates luck. And I'm stealing that from a buddy, but also just by showing up and going for it. We're doing our podcasts. We're making cold calls. We're focusing on the inputs that matter, that lead to the results we're after. Just by showing up consistently, even if on one podcast, one call, one presentation, we're not perfect. It's like just by showing up consistently, that will lead to inevitable success. So just to keep going, play the numbers game. Eventually, of course, the numbers turn to quality. But it's like,
it'll happen. Don't be discouraged. It's gonna be fine. We're here to help you guys. We'll continue to have these conversations. If there's any questions or anything that you guys have been through, a personal story, you want to throw that out there.
Put it in the comments. Yeah.
If you
right,
haven't
Mikey.
hit the subscribe button yet, subscribe.
Yeah.
Chris is doing a great job with helping folks crack into tech sales, with also bringing the right folks to help with expanding the knowledge and the palette of what tech sales can do for you. Till the next episode.
Yeah, man. to your success in tech sales and in life. Happy selling and happy living. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Appreciate y'all.
Peace.